Hey guys, I snagged another job for the township. This is another old rusty plow truck. It's an International 4900, 1998 I think, DT466E. They initially brought the truck to me to fix the front main seal. It was leaking, I guess, and slinging oil all over underneath the hood. And all I've done at this point really is just pressure washed underneath the hood and cleaned up the front of the engine to verify that the front main seal was in fact leaking. I can't actually make it leak. However, I can make it leak lots of coolant, and that's actually going to turn out to be quite a bit more of a job to fix than the leaking oil. So let's go take a look. I'll show you guys what I found. It's actually pretty interesting, I think. So here's the puddle that it's left on my floor, and if we hang out here for a minute, we'll probably actually see it drip. Yep, there it goes. It's actually leaking, without any pressure. The cap's been removed. Well, I'm not the world's biggest Harbor Freight fan, but I bought this radiator pressure test kit there a couple years ago, and I've been pretty happy with it. I have another one. It's an old Mac one, and it just has all it has is this style of adapter for the old quarter turn caps, but hardly anything uses that these days. So I bought this one just primarily for these adapters, and I've actually been pretty happy with it. So just to orient you guys, where we're going to be looking is on the right side of the engine, on the back side of the timing cover, down underneath of this coolant filter, kind of in front of the oil cooler, sort of where these hoses run into the coolant passage in the timing cover. Alright, I'm going to shoot a little air across this. Can you guys see that? It's actually cracked right here through this aluminum timing cover, right above the flange where that elbow bolts on the bottom. So that's the job. We got to get that inner timing cover off and then figure out what we're going to do with it. I guess we probably have three options. We can buy a new inner timing cover. The problem is that you have to buy both the inner and the outer because they made so many different variations that they don't basically make one that bolts right up to the outer timing cover. And to buy this set's like $1,500. So that's probably not going to happen. It's a township truck. They don't have any money. The second option would be to get a used cover. I did find one at a local truck salvage yard for $250. I think it's the same. I don't know for sure. We won't know until we get it apart. And then the third option is just to weld up the crack. So normally I would be pretty nervous about welding up a timing cover, especially anywhere in the gasket area. I've seen that not work before. But because the crack is down here away from the engine, kind of out here by these coolant hoses and stuff, I think we could probably weld it without too much risk. But you saw where it's cracked. It's actually cracked between kind of a boss and the ear of that flange. So getting down in there to weld that may be too difficult. So anyway, I don't think we're going to know until we get it apart, but getting the timing cover off is no small task. I would say we'll probably just take the hood all the way off, then we're going to have to pull the radiator and the charge air cooler. This truck does not have air conditioning, so that makes it a little bit easier. And then everything on the front of the engine's got to come off, alternator, belts, all that jazz. Everything that bolts to the timing cover has to come off or at least be separated. That would be like the air compressor, fuel pump, water pump, everything on the front of the engine basically. And then I think we may be able to leave the oil pan in place. I don't know how the oil pickup tube works on this engine. We'll have to take a look at that. And probably there's a good chance we'll ruin the oil pan gasket taking the cover off anyway. So I went ahead and ordered a oil pan gasket. Probably just plan on pulling the oil pan. It's not a big job in one of these trucks. This isn't a low profile truck, so it's not that hard to pull the pan. Then the other problem is that the front timing cover is also the front engine mount. So we have to basically support the front of the engine and leave it supported while we remove all that stuff. So we'll have to figure out what to do there. Probably just hook onto it with the gantry crane and kind of pick it up. So yeah, it's going to be a big job. And there's a couple of things working against us. The biggest one probably is that I have never done one of these before. I have done timing cover jobs, you know, on other engines before, but I have not done a DT466E. So I'm probably going to make some mistakes as I go. And if you're a seasoned international mechanic with, you know, 200 of these under your belt, you might want to just tune out now, because it's not going to go smoothly, I can tell you that. But I'm not worried. I think we'll get it. These are pretty simple engines, really. I mean, a lot of the stuff is pretty similar to the Power Stroke engines, if you guys are familiar with them. It has the same kind of Huey injection. I'm sure, yeah, it has the same, I know it has the same crank-driven oil pump on the front of the cover there. It's going to have the same press fit cam gear. You know, a lot of that stuff's going to be pretty similar. Now, the other thing that's working against us, this thing is a rust bucket. Check this out. It's actually rusted clear through this kind of sill area underneath of the windshield. And the engine block is actually so rusty I couldn't even read the serial number off the side of the block. I had to order the parts just going off of the VIN number. So calling it a rust bucket probably doesn't even really cover it. This thing is crusty. So that's where we're at. I quoted the job and the customer has given me the go-ahead. I ordered the parts that I think I'm going to need through the international dealership, and hopefully we get it right the first time, because just the gaskets alone to do this job is almost $500. So I don't want to be throwing a $500 gasket set in this thing more than once. And I'm not sure exactly how much of this I'm going to film. I'll try to get maybe just the highlights. I looked around online. There is not very much information about how to do this job. So I know that Warren out there at Western Truck and Tractor, he made kind of a, well, I don't want to disparage, but you know, a typical video for him. And he made, you know, basically a part one, and then he just gave up and never posted any kind of conclusion on it. So there's not a whole lot to go by from that. And then I found a series of videos a guy did on one of these engines in a school bus, and I don't know what that guy was doing. If he didn't have any service information, or he was milking the job out, or what was going on, but he pulled the whole head off, took the whole cam out. I mean, he had the thing completely stripped down in order to do this job, which I just don't think is necessary. So I guess we'll just see how she goes. Well, we're getting somewhere. I've been working on the truck for about an hour now, getting ready to take these cross braces off the top of the radiator, and then I'm going to pull this crazy thing off. That's an ether injection system. Looks like the wires are cut, so we probably won't even bother to put that back on. I'll just cap the port there in the charge air cooler tube, and yeah, we'll throw that in the trash can. Pretty wild. I don't think these 466s have any kind of a grid heater or glow plugs or anything like that, so getting them started in the cold is no fun. So the fan clutch on these engines is a left-hand thread. I've got this cool Lyle fan clutch tool. Works off your air hammer. And probably should have left the serpentine belt tight before I did it, but we got her broke loose now. Well, that certainly opens things up, and I think we might get away with doing this job without pulling the radiator. We don't have to pull the camshaft, so there's really no reason to pull the radiator. And I don't want to do it anyway if I don't have to, because it looks pretty angry in there. Those bolts are looking pretty scary. And it absolutely sucks because they welded this plow frame on the front of the truck, and it's in the way of everything. Well, have I mentioned how rusty this thing is? Currently, this pulley right here for the fan drive is fighting me the hardest. I've tried heat, I've tried hammers, I've tried air hammers, I've tried all three. Can't get it off. I think my next step's probably going to be to weld some bolts to it and stick a puller on there and see if I can get it off that way. We very likely may destroy it in the process, but that's how she goes. I'm pretty sure there's some bolts behind there that I've got to get out. And then take a look at this high pressure fuel pump. What size do you think that is? It's a mystery. The alternator bracket also fought me pretty hard. Had to heat all 4 bolts on that. So it's going okay, just this thing is a rust bucket. Well, I'm guessing it was a 10 millimeter, but using my special bolt resizer, it's now a 3/8. And I actually got the thing cracked loose. It is in a pretty miserable spot back there. And that's the easy one. There's one on the bottom I can't even see. There she is. Well, if you're looking for a comprehensive list of tools required to do this job, this and a acetylene torch will get you most of the way. Well, this is happening. It's Veterans Day, November 11th. It's supposed to be below 0 Fahrenheit tonight. That'll be fun. Have I mentioned this truck is rusty? Yeah, that happened. I had to heat that pulley up red hot to get it to break loose. Probably I cooked the seals on the bearings, so we'll have to deal with that when we get it apart. I think we'll be okay. Alright, we got to pull this harmonic damper off, and I've taken the 3 bolts out of the front, but there's a plate inside here that's got to come out before we can pull this damper off. It's a press fit, at least I'm pretty sure it's a press fit. And would you believe if I told you it was rusted in place? Okay, literally 30 minutes later, I finally managed to get that thing out of there. There ain't a whole lot of it left. I'll see if I can get a new one. I try really hard not to destroy things when I'm taking them apart, but you know, what option do you have? I just took my acetylene torch and tried to cook all the rust out of there and then lay into it with the air hammer. I may see about getting one of those bigger air hammers like that one that Eric O has. What's he call it? Big Nasty. Might be a little bit stronger than the old Matco workhorse here. Oh man, I thought these were a press fit. So the gantry crane is going to support the front of the engine, and then we need to remove this entire front engine mount bracket. And I've already got the bolts loose. Whoa. I just had to nail it with the 3/4 inch drive impact. Out they came. So now would be a good time to replace your front engine mounts if you need to. Well, the water pump didn't want to come without a fight. One of the bolts actually goes all the way through the timing cover and has a freaking nut on the back side of it. Actually, about half the bolts on the timing cover go through and have nuts on them, which is straight up retarded if you ask me. Anyway, nothing left of the bolt, so I just blew the head off with a torch. I'll have to replace that one. Now I gotta get that oil pump off, and it's looking pretty crusty. I got 2 bolts out of it, but it hasn't been easy. Have I mentioned this truck is rusty? There's one of the oil pump bolts. What size do you think that is? I actually got it out with one of these goofy spiral damaged bolt sockets. I've very rarely had these things actually work. Well, cool. You can finally see all the scary timing parts. And I wanted to show you guys something. I don't know if it'll show up on the camera. Oh, back up, back up. Come on, focus. Focus. Alright. Can you see right there? That little hairline right there? I think that's the back side of our crack. And it looks like it goes from the flange up in a semicircle and back down to the flange where that elbow bolts on the bottom. So I don't know if we're going to be able to weld that or not. Okay, that's the cam gear, and I just used a regular gear puller, but I flipped the jaws around kind of backwards, and then I used the yoke thing here to actually spread them apart. I don't know if that's a kosher use of a gear puller, but it's the best I'm going to be able to do. They make an actual cam gear puller, where instead of having feet like this, the feet actually go this way. I think one goes this way and one goes that way. So if I'm going to keep doing this, maybe I should get one of those. I should have run away from this job just as fast as I possibly could. Even inside of the timing cover, where there's no corrosion, I still have to heat and beat and destroy these bolts to get them out. I don't know if they use the crappiest, softest steel they could possibly find, or what the deal is. So, I don't know why you would make a fastener like this. I think it's an M8 thread with a 10mm hex. You know, give us something to hold on to. This is just stupid. Well, this stopped being fun a long time ago. The bolts are all out, everything's loose on the timing cover, and the right hand side, it flaps around like a cabin screen door, but the right side, she won't move at all. And I think what's happening is right there, between the oil cooler and the front cover, there's a little metal sleeve, steel sleeve, and that piece is aluminum, and that piece is aluminum, and that piece is steel. I think it's basically just corroded into one big piece now. So I have no idea what to do with that. I do not want to mess with that oil cooler. That thing looks scary. If we take one of those pedestals off, it's never going to seal up again. So I don't know what to do. I'm kind of tired of messing with it for today. Well, good morning. I decided last night that I'd rather hang myself with a fan belt than tangle with that oil cooler pedestal. So let me show you what happened. Well, I took the old Sawzall blade and just zipped right through that steel sleeve, and we'll see if we can deal with that once the timing cover's off. But you can see that's definitely the thing that was holding this up. Well, this thing's going to fight me to the very last fastener. This freaking hose clamp. Nothing left of it. Yeah, we'll probably just end up replacing all these coolant hoses anyway, because they've all seen better days. Even the barbs, I mean, there's just nothing left of them. Well, at least these hoses are still a little bit pliable. Finally, it's off. That was a pain in the ass. Man, get a look at how freaking rusty this engine block is. I know I've been whining a lot about it, but I don't know. We'll probably cut the video off here after I get it disassembled, and I'll stop whining so much in the next one. So just to wrap things up, I ended up leaving this high pressure pump and the air compressor just kind of mounted. The pump kind of flops around a little bit, but the compressor's got another bracket at the back, so it pretty much will just sit there. And then I left the oil pan in place because you can imagine what the bolts look like. They look just like all those bolts in the front cover, so I'm not going there. And we're gonna have to figure out how to get this thing out of that oil cooler pedestal. But other than that, we're in the home stretch now. I also ended up leaving the radiator and the hood in place. Probably would have been a lot easier to do it with the radiator and stuff out of the way, but it's just kind of hard to do that because I work by myself all the time. So moving a big bulky thing like a hood that's painted and stuff, I don't want to get into that. So when possible, I'll just leave it alone. So here's a better look at our leak. This is the elbow. See, the piece actually came with it. So this would go right here. So it's actually split right through the flange and busted this half moon piece out. I don't think we're going to try to weld that. It looks like a bad idea to me. So I think what I'll try to do is just source a used cover, and we'll go that route. Also, some of you guys might have noticed, but I didn't see it right away. Looks like we had a water pump go out at one time and it just chewed the front of the cover up. So I think it'd be better just to go ahead and replace it. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and split the video here as the end of part one. I like to keep the videos kind of around the 30 or 40 minute mark. Otherwise my computer, she really struggles with those bigger files. Anyway, I got the spool, this little spool out of the oil cooler, so don't have to worry about that. I'll get a new one of those ordered. I think we'll go ahead and just replace pretty much every bolt that goes into the front timing cover. Probably anything that has whatever those are, M8 or so thread on them, or an M6, we'll just go ahead and replace them. The oil pan bolts that I took out as well. I'm not going to drop the pan. I think we'll just let that ride. And I got the salvage yard working on the used cover. I'm not going to try to weld it. Like I said, I've had bad luck or bad experiences trying to weld through the flange there. You just never get them to seal up. And it's kind of low risk since that's just on that elbow, but I don't want to chance it because it's such a terrible job to redo it. Anyway, I don't know how long the video will end up being, but I've got about 8 hours in this job right now. Maybe a smidge more. I quoted it at 15 hours. Hopefully I covered myself. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how well things go back together. Anyway, thanks guys for watching, and I'll have part 2 coming up pretty soon.